At the family dinner, my parents told me, pay the mortgage or stay away for Christmas. It was Christmas Eve, and the scent of roasting turkey and baked pies filled the house. The table was set with care, decorated with the same holiday traditions that had been passed down in their family for generations. The lights on the Christmas tree flickered in a warm, festive glow, and outside the snow fell softly, blanketing the world in a serene, quiet white. It should have been a moment of peace and joy, but for Mia, the holiday dinner felt like anything but. She sat at the end of the long oak table, her hands clenched tightly around her glass of water. Her parents, as always, sat at the head of the table, looking like the perfect picture of festive cheer. But the words that had just come out of her mother's mouth had shattered the calm of the evening. "You either pay the mortgage or you stay away for Christmas," her mother had said, her voice cold and demanding, a tone that Mia knew all too well. Mia froze. For a moment, she thought she hadn't heard correctly. But as her mother's eyes locked onto hers with that familiar, disappointed glare, the reality set in. This wasn't a joke. This was an ultimatum. Pay off the mortgage in full, or risk losing everything, including the family's Christmas celebrations. Her father, silent as always, sat with his arms folded, eyes avoiding hers, the same indifference he'd shown for years. Mia's mind raced. This wasn't the first time they'd put pressure on her, but it was certainly the most direct. They knew she had been struggling financially, working long hours in a job she'd barely tolerated, trying to keep everything afloat after her last failed attempt at a business venture. But now they were using her vulnerability against her. Her parents, once her rock, had become the very people who pushed her to the edge. They had turned their back on her in a way that was both hurtful and deliberate. Her mother's words echoed in her mind, each one like a strike against her heart. Mia had always felt the pressure to succeed, to do more, to be more. She had always tried to please them, to meet their impossible expectations. But this was different. This was the line in the sand. If she didn't meet their demands, if she couldn't come up with the money, she would be cut out. She would be abandoned. "I'm your daughter, Mom. Why are you doing this to me?" Mia finally managed to speak, her voice barely above a whisper. Her mother didn't flinch, her gaze sharp and unwavering. "You've had plenty of time to get your life together. We can't keep bailing you out. You're not a child anymore. Either you help us or you'll be left to figure it out on your own. That's your choice." Mia wanted to scream. She wanted to stand up and walk out of the house, to leave everything behind and never look back. But she didn't. Instead, she sat there, her fingers tightening around her glass as she fought to keep her emotions in check. "You think I haven't been trying? You think I haven't been doing everything I can?" Mia's voice cracked slightly as she spoke, her frustration bubbling to the surface. "I'm not some kind of failure. I'm just struggling." Her mother's face softened, but only for a moment. "We all struggle, Mia, but struggling isn't an excuse. We've given you enough chances." The words hit Mia like a ton of bricks. There it was again, the same old refrain. She wasn't good enough. No matter how much she did, it was never enough. Her parents didn't understand the pressure she was under, the sacrifices she had made just to keep her head above water. And instead of sympathy, all they had for her was disappointment. She was their burden, not their daughter. Mia's hands trembled as she set the glass down. She glanced around the table at her siblings, hoping for some sign of support, some word of comfort, but there was nothing. Her younger brother Daniel was too busy with his phone to even notice the tension in the room. Her older sister Sophie was quietly stirring her food, her eyes avoiding Mia's. The dinner that was supposed to be filled with laughter and love was now heavy with tension, suffocating the holiday spirit. Mia could feel the walls closing in on her. She had no allies here. No one was going to stand up for her. Her parents had made their decision, and there was nothing she could do to change it. "Fine," Mia said, the word escaping her lips before she even realized what she was saying. "Fine, I'll pay the mortgage, but don't think for a second that this is going to fix anything." Her mother's lips curled into a small smile as though Mia had finally given in, as though everything was now settled. "That's the spirit," she said, her tone now more pleasant, almost congratulatory. "We knew you'd come around." But Mia didn't feel like she had come around. She felt like she had been broken. There was no joy in agreeing to their terms, no relief in the thought of paying off the mortgage. Instead, all she felt was a burning, seething anger. Anger at her parents for holding her financial well-being over her head. Anger at herself for allowing them to have this power over her. But most of all, she felt a deep sense of betrayal. This wasn't just about money anymore. This was about respect, about dignity. And Mia knew one thing for sure. She wasn't going to let them walk all over her anymore. As the dinner continued, Mia's mind was already working on a plan. She couldn't stand the thought of paying the mortgage just to be accepted back into their lives. No, there had to be another way. A way to make them see the cost of their actions. A way to make them feel what she had felt for years. The isolation, the pressure, the constant need to prove herself. She knew it wouldn't be easy. But Mia had learned one thing from all her struggles. She could fight. And this time, she would fight back. She would make them pay for every word, for every time they had made her feel small. This Christmas, the tables would turn. Mia's revenge had already begun. Mia had made her decision that night at the dinner table. The words had left her mouth before she had fully realized the weight of them. "Fine, I'll pay the mortgage." But deep down, Mia knew that agreeing to her parents' demand was not the same as accepting their terms. It was just the beginning of something far more complicated. As the days passed, the bitterness inside her grew. Christmas was getting closer, and her parents seemed to think everything was settled, that Mia had done what they expected. But Mia wasn't just going to pay off the mortgage and walk away. No, she had a plan now, one that would ensure they knew exactly what it felt like to take her for granted. Mia wasn't someone who had a lot of money. In fact, she had barely enough to keep herself afloat. The pressure of her mounting debts was something she'd hidden from her parents for years. They were too wrapped up in their own world to ever notice her struggles. Her mother, a woman who demanded perfection and success from her children, had always seen Mia as the failure of the family. And now, with the mortgage hanging over her head, Mia realized that she had been playing their game for far too long. The first step was finding out everything she could about her parents' mortgage. She didn't know where to start, but her mind was determined to figure it out. She spent days digging through old paperwork, making phone calls to the bank, and even consulting with a financial advisor. It wasn't easy, but Mia wasn't one to give up. Each hour spent researching brought her closer to the truth. The mortgage wasn't what her parents had led her to believe. In fact, it was much worse than they had admitted. The more she uncovered, the clearer it became. Her parents had been hiding their financial troubles for years. The mortgage wasn't the only debt they had. There were loans, credit cards, and overdue bills that had been swept under the rug. Her mother had always acted like the perfect homemaker, but Mia now realized that her mother's perfect life was built on lies. They weren't just struggling, they were on the brink of losing everything. But Mia was determined not to feel sorry for them. No, this wasn't about pity. It was about justice. Mia spent weeks compiling evidence. She started working late at her job, trying to save up enough money to take action. Every paycheck went into a secret account she'd opened just for this purpose. She worked long hours, skipped social gatherings, and pushed herself harder than ever before. Every moment was a step closer to executing her plan. It wasn't until the weekend before Christmas that Mia had all the pieces in place. She had been careful, strategic, and methodical. Her parents had no idea what was coming. They still thought they had the upper hand, that Mia was simply going to pay the mortgage and be done with it. They had no idea that Mia had discovered their lies, and they certainly had no idea that their perfect world was about to come crashing down. The night she decided to make her move, Mia felt a mix of satisfaction and rage. She wasn't doing this out of spite or malice, though it may have seemed that way. No, she was doing it because she had been pushed too far. She had been overlooked, dismissed, and betrayed by the very people who should have supported her. And now they would learn what it felt like to lose everything. Mia sat at her kitchen table, her laptop open in front of her, and she stared at the screen, her heart pounding. She had gathered all the evidence. The bank statements, the loan documents, the unpaid bills. She had everything she needed to expose her parents for what they truly were: financial frauds. It wasn't about revenge in the way most people thought. Mia wasn't out to destroy them. She simply wanted them to feel what she had felt all these years: the constant pressure, the unspoken expectations, and the crushing weight of never being good enough. She wanted them to understand the consequences of their actions, of treating her like an afterthought, a pawn in their game of appearances. The plan was simple. Mia would send the documents anonymously to the bank, her parents' creditors, and anyone else who could expose their financial mismanagement. They would be forced to confront the truth, but Mia would not be involved. She would remain in the background, watching as her parents' world unraveled. As the night wore on, Mia felt a sense of calm settle over her. She wasn't afraid anymore. She wasn't worried about the consequences of her actions. For the first time in years, Mia felt powerful. She was no longer the weak, needy daughter who had to beg for her parents' love. She was in control. The following morning, Mia made the decision to leave town for a while. She wasn't running away from her parents. She was simply stepping back to let everything unfold. It wasn't about hiding. It was about giving them the space to deal with the mess they had created. The last thing Mia wanted was to be there when it all fell apart. She had already suffered enough. She booked a flight to a small town in the next state. It wasn't much, but it was enough to give her the time and space she needed to think. She needed to escape the suffocating atmosphere of her parents' house and the pressure of her life. Before she left, Mia called her brother Daniel. He had always been the golden child, the one who could do no wrong in their parents' eyes. He was the one who could do no wrong, who could never disappoint. Mia had always envied his ability to walk through life without facing the same challenges she did. But now, she was starting to see the cracks in his perfect life, too. "I'm leaving for a while," she said when Daniel answered the phone. "I need some time away." "Where are you going?" Daniel's voice was full of concern, but Mia knew better than to believe it was genuine. "I don't know yet. Just somewhere quiet. Somewhere I can think," she replied. "Don't do anything crazy, Mia. You're still family," Daniel said, his voice laced with the same indifference he had always shown her. Mia didn't respond. She didn't owe him an explanation. She wasn't doing this for him. She was doing this for herself. She hung up the phone, took a deep breath, and left her apartment, her plan now in motion. She wasn't just going to let her parents have their way. She wasn't going to be their scapegoat any longer. Mia was done playing by their rules. As she drove to the airport, she couldn't help but feel a sense of excitement building inside her. This was it. This was her moment. The final act of her revenge was about to unfold. It had been 3 weeks since Mia left her parents' house. The holiday season passed in a blur of cold nights and moments of quiet reflection. The small town she had chosen offered the peace she desperately needed. No reminders of her parents' expectations, no bustling family dinners, no Christmas demands. Mia stayed in a simple rented cabin, spending her days working remotely and her nights in solitude, allowing her mind to process everything that had happened. But she had not forgotten it. Not for a single moment. The plan was set, and it was only a matter of time before the consequences of her actions would catch up with her parents. She had done her part. The bank had received the documents, the creditors were informed, and the lies her parents had told for years would soon come to light. Mia was ready for the fallout. She wasn't afraid anymore. Her phone buzzed one chilly evening as she was sipping a cup of tea by the fire. The number on the screen was unknown, but she instinctively picked it up, knowing it was time. Her heart skipped a beat when the voice on the other end spoke. "Mia?" "It's Mom," her mother said. Mia's stomach tightened, but she didn't hesitate. "Hello, Mom. How's everything?" she asked, her voice calm, even though her heart was racing. "We need to talk," her mother replied. The tone in her voice was cold, distant. Mia could sense the tension in every word. "There's something happening with the bank, with the house. They've frozen our account. We don't know what's going on. We need you to help us, Mia. You're the only one who can fix this." Mia felt a wave of satisfaction wash over her. She had done it. The cracks were starting to show, and her parents were finally feeling the pressure of their own making. But she didn't let it show. She had come too far to let herself fall back into old habits. "I'm sorry, Mom, I can't help you," Mia said, her voice steady and firm. "You asked me for money and I did what you wanted, but now it's your turn to face the consequences. You pushed me to do this." There was a long silence on the other end of the line, followed by a sigh. "I don't understand, Mia. Why are you doing this to us? We're your family. We've always supported you. Why would you turn your back on us now?" Mia closed her eyes, feeling the weight of the years of neglect and judgment. Her mother had never understood. They never had a true supportive relationship. It had always been about what Mia could do for them, what she could give, how she could measure up to their impossible standards. "You've never supported me, Mom. You've never really seen me for who I am, just what I could do for you," Mia replied, her voice cold but clear. "All these years, I've tried so hard to be everything you wanted, but nothing I did was ever enough. So no, I won't help you now. I'm done." There was another long silence, but Mia wasn't going to break. She could hear her mother's breathing grow shallow, and she knew the hurt was settling in. It wasn't that Mia enjoyed causing pain, but she couldn't allow herself to be controlled by guilt anymore. Finally, her mother spoke again, her voice quieter, almost defeated. "I don't know what to do, Mia. Everything is falling apart. We can't pay the bills. We can't fix this without you. Why can't you just forgive us?" Mia's heart ached for a moment, but she pushed the feeling away. She had tried for so long to gain her parents' approval, but they had never understood her struggles. They had always made her feel small. Now she had to stand firm. "I've already forgiven you, Mom," Mia said, her voice almost too calm. "But forgiveness doesn't mean I forget. You wanted me to pay the mortgage, but you never asked how I was doing. What I needed, you didn't care. You just wanted me to do what you wanted. Now it's time for you to face the consequences of that." Her mother didn't respond for several seconds, and when she did, her voice cracked with emotion. "You don't understand. We're your parents. We've always done everything for you. This is how you repay us?" Mia felt a surge of anger, but she quickly tamped it down. She couldn't afford to let her emotions control her anymore. She had worked too hard to make this moment happen. "I'm sorry, Mom, but I'm not your child anymore. You can't keep using me to fix your problems. You have to learn how to stand on your own 2 feet, Mia said, her voice unwavering. "And maybe, just maybe, you'll understand what I've been dealing with all these years." With that, Mia ended the call, her heart still racing. She didn't feel a sense of victory, not yet, but she knew she had done the right thing. Her parents would have to face their own mistakes now. Mia had taken control of her life, and she wasn't going to let anyone, not even her parents, take that from her. For the next few days, Mia heard nothing from her parents. The silence was deafening. She had expected a flood of desperate phone calls or messages, but there was nothing. It wasn't until the day before New Year's Eve that Mia finally heard from her father. The message was short, but it carried the weight of everything she had been waiting for. It read, "We need to talk. Please come home." Mia stared at the message for a moment, unsure of what to do. She had made her point, hadn't she? She had forced them to confront the reality of their actions. But now they wanted her to come home? To fix things? Mia felt a sense of satisfaction and disgust. She had nothing left to prove, but curiosity gnawed at her. What would they say? What would they do? Part of her wanted to know if they had learned anything, or if they were just going to beg her to save them once again. After a long pause, Mia finally typed out a response. "I'll be there tomorrow." She wasn't going to go back to fix their problems, but she was going to face them. She had to. This was her final step. She had taken control of her life, but she still needed closure. The next morning, Mia packed her bags, taking a deep breath as she prepared to return to the place that had caused her so much pain. She wasn't sure what to expect, but she knew one thing for sure: she wasn't going to let her parents drag her back into their web of manipulation. Not now. Not ever again. The drive back to her parents' house felt longer than it ever had before. Mia had spent the last few days thinking about her decision to return. Part of her was relieved to be taking the final step toward closure, but another part of her was still unsure about what would happen when she arrived. Would her parents be angry? Would they beg for forgiveness? Would they try to make her feel guilty for standing up to them? Mia didn't know what to expect, but she was ready. She had made her decision, and she wasn't going to back down. She wasn't the same person who had left their house weeks ago. She had grown stronger, more confident. The pain that had once seemed unbearable now felt like a distant memory. When she finally pulled into the familiar driveway, Mia couldn't help but feel a wave of nostalgia. The house, with its white picket fence and perfectly manicured lawn, still looked the same. But she knew the truth now. This perfect exterior had been hiding years of secrets, lies, and financial struggles. The house wasn't what it seemed, and neither were her parents. She stepped out of the car, taking a deep breath before heading to the front door. Her hand hesitated on the doorknob for just a moment, but then she turned it and stepped inside. Her parents were waiting in the living room. Her mother sat on the couch, her arms crossed and her eyes red. Her father stood near the window, looking out into the yard, his expression unreadable. Mia could sense the tension in the air, the quiet before the storm. "Sit down, Mia," her father said quietly, without turning around. It was the first time in a long while that he had spoken to her without anger or disappointment in his voice. Mia didn't sit right away. Instead, she stood in the middle of the room studying her parents. For so long, they had held power over her life, her choices, and her emotions. But now, things were different. She was the one in control. "You wanted me to come back," Mia said, her voice steady. "I'm here, but don't expect me to fix everything this time." Her father turned slowly to face her. He looked tired, older than she remembered. There was a heaviness in his eyes, a look that she had never seen before. For a moment, Mia wondered if he finally understood the pain she had been carrying all these years. But she didn't have time to dwell on that thought. "We're sorry, Mia," her mother said, her voice trembling. "We should have never asked you to do that. We've been so proud of you, but we let our pride get in the way. We didn't realize how much pressure we were putting on you." Mia felt a pang in her chest, but she didn't allow herself to soften. She had heard these words before. They had said sorry, apologized, and promised things would be different. But nothing ever changed. "I'm sorry too," Mia said, her voice firm. "But this isn't just about the mortgage. It's about how you've treated me my whole life. You've always expected me to be perfect, to do everything right, but you never cared to know what I was going through. You never asked if I was okay. You just took from me and took, expecting me to give more and more." Her mother's eyes filled with tears, but Mia held her ground. She had given up so much of herself to meet their expectations. She had sacrificed her own happiness, her own peace of mind, all for the sake of trying to please them. And now, it was time to let go of that.
"We've always supported you," her father said quietly.
"We've tried to do what's best for you, even if we made mistakes along the way, but we never meant to hurt you." Mia looked at them, her heart still heavy with the weight of all the years of disappointment, of trying to meet impossible standards. She thought about everything she had been through, the loneliness, the isolation, and the constant feeling of not being enough. For the first time, she realized that her parents' actions weren't about her. They were about their own fears, their own insecurities, and their own need for control. "You didn't hurt me by asking me to pay the mortgage," Mia said, her voice low but firm. "You hurt me by never seeing me for who I am. You didn't ask about my dreams, my struggles, or my pain. You just expected me to fit into your perfect little box." Her mother wiped her eyes, nodding slowly. "We were wrong. We should have listened to you. We should have been there for you." Mia felt the anger she had been holding onto for so long start to fade. It wasn't forgiveness, not yet. But it was a start. For the first time, her parents were acknowledging the damage they had caused. It wasn't much, but it was enough to make Mia believe that things could be different. "I know," Mia said, her voice softer now. But I'm not your fixer anymore. I'm not here to make everything okay for you. You have to fix this yourself." Her father nodded, his expression solemn. "We understand, Mia, and we'll try to do better. We'll work on fixing our mistakes. We'll work on being better." Mia wasn't sure if she believed them. It didn't matter if they truly changed. What mattered was that she had finally stopped trying to change for them. She had taken back control of her life. She had set boundaries, and she wasn't going to let anyone, not even her parents, cross them again. "Thank you for listening," Mia said, her voice steady but filled with the strength she had gained. "But I'm done now. I need to live my life for me, not for you." For a moment there was silence in the room. Her parents didn't say anything more. They didn't beg her to stay or apologize any further. They simply sat there, accepting the truth of what Mia had said. And for Mia, that was enough. She turned and walked toward the door, feeling a sense of finality wash over her. She wasn't running away from them. She was leaving them to fix their own mess, just as she had to. And for the first time in a long while, Mia felt free. As she stepped outside, the cold air hit her face, and she took a deep breath. The snow had started to fall again, soft and steady, covering the ground in a blanket of white. It felt like a new beginning, a fresh start. Mia was no longer the child who had been manipulated and controlled. She was an adult, and she was finally ready to live her own life. The world was hers to shape now, and Mia was ready to take it on.